Accepting and understanding your facade. For the longest time, I didn't agree with that, and I didn't understand what the facade was. I feel like I have like 97% of it understood, but not like on the deep level, but just like overall total encompassing, like feel wise. I feel like I know about 97% of my facade. I haven't broken it all down. I'm trying to break it down as quick as I can, but and also as pure as I can, because I know it can't be done intellectually, because that's what created it, was intellectually. But what's crazy about it is that, like, the more that I'm open to it and I'm accepting of it, I mean, like, the biggest thing of like surrendering to it, accepting that it's there, not trying to deny that it's there, the easier things get, oddly enough. I thought they would have been different. I went through a Great Depression last year, during the recording of my band's album Pyrrhic. My band Pervade, our LP album was titled Pyrrhic, and the last couple of videos the additional videos have been music from my band, just trying to help spread it out a little bit and get people to hear it, and, get people's comments on it, as I feel it comes from a pretty pure place. I'm not attached to the outcomes anymore, and it's not so much of like giving up on what the dreams and passions and aspirations are, but more so like really trying to connect with what the reasonings were and are now, knowing what I know now. And it's kind of crazy, because like I was in a huge depression, I had suicidal thoughts and just was not wanting anything to be, just didn't get it, was just pain, like tons of pain. And I was talking with my best friend on the phone, who's also my cousin through marriage, and he was telling me, and I think I've mentioned this before, but he was telling me that you basically you're wanting to kill the image that society had built up and that you had built up since you were a young kid. And it really kind of like struck home with me, because obviously he had tapped into something really, really pure, and he's been giving gifts like that ever since we were kids. He's been able to just kind of just zero in and just bam, that's what it is. And I know I have too in my own way, but it really threw me, because I knew immediately he was right, and yet I still had some resistance to it, because I was thinking like, what else do I identify with, and if I'm not these things, then who am I? And it wasn't so much that like these things really, but it was more that the motivation and the drive behind them. Like I still subconsciously, even though consciously I said that I wasn't, I still subconsciously was seeking what's the word? Acknowledgement. I was still seeking acknowledgement subconsciously without knowing it. And like I really had to process what that meant. Like I really had to process, what that felt like. And I mean, even now, like, like when you post, in a sense, like a video, like on YouTube or anything, in a way, you still are kind of seeking acknowledgement. But now it's like, are you really seeking acknowledgement, or are you just like seeking in a sense, a platform in order to speak, to just be heard, but not necessarily be acknowledged? Like, these tools that we have in modern day, like podcasts and YouTube channels and vlogs and all kinds of things, like, they're great tools to just kind of release that feeling of pent up angst or pent up energy, or, you know, like, you got to get something off your chest, yet you don't think anybody's listening to you, or, you know, you've got some fear or some anger or some rage, and you need to release it, but you don't want to isolate whenever you're releasing it. I mean, in a sense, even though technically I'm isolated right now, whoever views this will then also be a part of that energy and take that in and come from a place of either understanding, or it'll trigger something in them to where they may be resentful, upset, angry, loving, caring, like something. Like, because I've noticed that I would watch somebody's video and then I would get triggered by it, and I realize now that, like, that being triggered wasn't necessarily me. It was something that was in my facade that then was triggered, that then made me feel a certain way, which it wasn't actually me, because myself, like, I wouldn't be triggered by anybody else and for what they were doing for their own, you know, being in their own growth and their own love, because it has nothing to do with me. If something somebody else is doing is triggering me, that means, like, really deep down, like, that's something broken down in me. Like, that's something that's just not lining up in me. So being able to connect with that, and now, like, really having a better grasp on what the facade is, and a better grasp on the fact that, like, it's a continual deconstruction of it, like, on the day to day, and, you know, like, just minute to minute, moment to moment. And a lot of people don't want to do that type of work. Like, they really don't. But I mean, honestly, you know, I feel like I'm getting closer to God because of it, which is, you know, quite amazing. Still got a long way to go, but one of the ways that I think aids in breaking it down, and it feels to me like it's, you know, like it's more of a natural love path, is what it feels like, is just breath work in general. Like, breath work feels like it's, like, you know, like a good way of tapping in, because, like, I haven't been able to, in a sense, like, isolate and be alone and really, like, go into myself or go into my emotions and really, like, kind of release, like any, I haven't been able to really release any rage. I haven't been able to really release any sadness. Like, I've been somewhat stuck. Like, it was kind of like a pipe that has, like, a mini rock in it, that, like some water's coming through and the pressure's building, and, you know, eventually, if it gets loose enough, it'll pop, and then all of a sudden, like, the floodgates will come. But and I don't know if that has to do with the fact that I haven't worked on a TV or film project in a while, because usually whenever I work on a character and I'm doing a project, I'm able to tap in a little bit more as well. Excuse me. And I mean, again, like, now even just saying that, you know, like, going back to acknowledgement, like, before, you know, like, I'm seeking acknowledgement of the fact that, you know, like, that I'm an actor and that, you know, I'm a performer, and now it's like, I really don't give a shit. Like, my ego says I give a shit, but right now it's like, that to me is still just a tool. Like, it's just, now I understand, and I'm really grateful for it, that, you know, that I grew up in the performing arts, because now I have, like, I think I have a little bit better understanding of being able to tap into emotion, in the sense of, like to use it to heal. And I've always been that way, but now, with the understanding of what I understand now, like, it has so much more power and benefit to it. Like, just really, really on the basis, like breaking down feeling and emotion, because like each one is so specific. And when you look at your life and you lay it out before you and you really go back and think of like your first earliest childhood memory all the way up until now, and then you really go back and you really look and realize when you started compromising your own feelings and you started compromising who you were, and then started conforming within your own family to be accepted and understood. Like, that's powerful. Like, that's, but at the same time, it's also, it's somewhat of a prison if you don't try to really break that stuff down. Now, some people would just be like, oh, you can just, go back and understand that and accept it and move on. It's like, no, you can't. You really can't, because like in reality, like if you really think about it, there was something that traumatically happened to each and every one of us in our youth where we either felt neglected, rejected, or misunderstood or unloved. And because of having those feelings in us as children, it put up blockages. I mean, like, there's nobody that's exempt from this. Like, there's absolutely nobody that's exempt from this. And like, I mean, I'm telling you when I'm saying it's like, it's not an easy thing to do, like to break this stuff down. Like I've spoken with my parents about this, like at length and at nauseam, to the point where they're like starting to see the benefit of it, because they're starting to understand that with each little release that happens, each little breakthrough that happens, there's like more truth and more love that shines through. There's more understanding that shines through. There's more healing that comes through. And I'm just grateful that like that they're still around, and that they were for the most part, as much as they could, be receptive to it. I mean, sometimes it's somewhat kind of confusing for them, but like this last holiday season, we had like a really good breakthrough. And I mean, we bumped heads, which, that's like we all went head to head. We all went toe to toe. But I mean, in the end, like, like the love was still there, which is what's most important. And I know there are some families that aren't able to do that, which is, sad, because it's that contrast that like allows one to push through the facade, if you will. It's that contrast, because that contrast then shows you what's real and then what's not real. Like, shows you what's what isn't the facade and what's really you, and then shows you what's the facade. And whenever you talk about that facade with people that really haven't identified with it and really haven't connected with it and really haven't accepted it, it's kind of a moot point. Like, you're basically talking to a wall, because until somebody actually and actively starts to really break down their own facade and really starts to understand the fact that like that all of these things like really are built up over time, and that it's okay. Like you didn't really have a choice. Like, you had to do these things to survive, like psychologically, spiritually, physically, emotionally. Like you had to build these tools. Like the only other way that you could have like legitimately moved past it, like the only other way you could have legitimately moved past it would be if you would have 100% like connected with God, and would have 100% been in truth and been in love. But more than likely, if you would have done that in this day and age, you would have been locked up and people would have said that you're crazy. Like, or you would have been murdered and killed. Like, because it's such a contrast to the way that we live our lives these days. It's like such a freaking contrast. Like, being in total love, total acceptance. Like, it like, most people don't know how to handle that. Like, they really don't. They really don't know how to handle that. And that just really goes to show how damaged people are for the most part. Like, we accept it in certain ways. Like, we get some of that love and truth, and God, God bless the fact that, like, a majority of artists are able to, at moments, like at blip moments within certain projects or certain things that they do, whether it be a painting or a poem, or, I mean, music's a really powerful and potent way of doing it as well. Like, every now and then, like, like some real truth kind of shines through, some real love shines through. And then there's other stuff that, like, may be still, love, but it's more, again, like on the natural love path, and that, like it's kind of more spirit influenced, and it's not a bad thing, but yeah, no, like now, like I go to my 9 to 5, and I've got like a different filter that's on now. Like, I'm trying to be a lot more humble, a lot more receptive, a lot more understanding, a lot more forgiving, both to myself and to others. I'm also being more consciously aware of, like, when my facade gets triggered, when I realize that, like, when I'm actually being me, and then when I'm actually, like, living in my facade, like, and when I'm actually, like, like just satisfying an addiction. And what's funny is that, like, most people hear the word addiction and they think about, like, drugs and alcohol, and, like, that's it, like, or sex. Drugs, alcohol, sex, and food. Like, that's like, oh, you're a food addict, or oh, you're a sex addict, or oh, you're a drug addict, or oh, you have alcoholism. Like that addiction, addiction is, like, quite literally, like, anything done at nauseum to escape, like to escape. Like, that's an addiction. Like if you get off your 9 to 5 every day and you go home and you turn on the TV, and you cannot for one fucking day not turn on the TV, then, like, you're addicted. You're addicted to TV. Like, that's how it is. Like, sorry. Like, that's the truth. Like, if you're doing something on such a repetitive nature, day to day to day, and if you don't do it, they're like, oh, you're gonna. There are people that are addicted to working out. Like, let's just be real about that too. Like, oh, they didn't go to the gym the one day, and they're just geeking out on the inside. Like, everything can be an addiction. Everything. And you got to be honest about that. You have to be honest about that with yourself, not with anybody else. Like, because the opinions of other people don't really matter in the end. Like, and it's not about, like, oh, he's, you're just being bigger and better than somebody. No. Like at its base level, like, what I'm saying, I'm not trying to say I know more. Like, what I'm saying to you is that, like, I went through the same thing too, and when I came to this understanding, I was able to get a lot more freer and a lot more humble and a lot more, like, just, like, life kind of lightened up a little bit. Like, life kind of, like, eased up a little bit. Now, mind you, it's like, I don't have that much money in the bank. Like, it may seem like it because I'm driving a car, but, like, as of this moment, like, it doesn't mean that I won't later, and I'm aiming for it later. But even with that, it's like I'm not so concerned with that, because I know it's gonna be there. I know things are gonna come, and for the first time, like, I really do have faith that, like, everything's gonna work out fine. I still go through some fear about that stuff, but I know that, again, that's a fear that's been built up because of the expectations of society, X, Y, and Z, and I mean, like, I know I'm doing everything within my power to move things forward and to you know, like, be in the vortex, if you will, and I'm in there and I'm living that each time, each day, and I'm grateful for the journey. I'm not looking at the end result or the destination in a sense, and I am, like, because, like, I'm doing all this work because I want to be at a really good place in the end, and I'm grateful that these things were shown to me because it leads me there. You know, and just to kind of like go back, I mean, like, I'm going to a meeting, and then I'm going to be going to a breathwork session up in Malibu, which should be really nice, by a friend of mine, Serafina, and I'll leave her Instagram tag in the little caption below. Super sweet woman, like one of my soul sisters. Got nothing but love in her heart. Just wants to help and heal people. And again, like I said, it feels I believe there's elements of divine love in it, but I think overall, as far as like as a whole is concerned, like with what breath work is, it feels more of like a natural love path, but its end result, I think, if channeled properly, is very, very much divine love. Like it's utilizing the tool of natural love to possibly like break that shell into divine love. It's like, and I mean, that's kind of what I'm utilizing it as right now, so that I can really kind of tap into my anger, tap into my fear, tap into my sadness, like tap into these things and break these things down, you know, try to get closer to God. Because like you have to feel the overwhelming emotion to like communicate with God, like you just do, like, unless you're gonna do science and math, like it's the only other way to really like tap in. And I mean, that should be everybody's goal, is to tap in. It's kind of like, you know, one of the most freeing things on the planet. And now, you know, like when I look at all of my different addictions that were built up over time, and now I'm going back and I'm breaking through them all and thinking to myself, which ones, not so much like which ones are addictions, but more of like, is there a way that I can go back and am I gonna have to give up all of them because they're, quote, addictions, or am I gonna be able to like maybe go through it and think, okay, can I do this while still maintaining love and truth? Can I still, is there a benefit of any of this, like in any way, shape, or form, you know? Or was it just created out of, you know, trying to process pain and trying to process fear and trying to escape? Like, because like if those same mechanisms are getting triggered every single time that I go back and do something that at one point in time was like a really good pastime for me, that then, you know, like had me, quote, heal myself, you know, like, because I felt okay, I felt calm, but it's being done because of a conscious / subconscious addiction to, you know, the result of a trauma, the result of a pain. Like, to give you a prime example, right? Like I loved in my youth playing video games, and I still love playing video games with some of my really close friends back home. Now, mind you, like, I've got some close friends back home that are freaking geniuses. Like, I mean, like, smart, like, just through the roof. Like, these guys are super freaking intelligent. I mean, we talk about anything and everything from, like, quantum theory to string theory to, like, you name it. Like, the list is endless, which is one of the reasons why I feel we gravitated towards each other in the first place, is because we were kind of pretty much the oddballs of all of our classes. And when we would talk about stuff, we'd give an answer and people would look at us like, what are you talking about? And this is like coming from like 8-year-olds all the way up until we graduated high school. Like, as much of like loners as possible, but we were all a part of different groups, and then in the end we had like our group. Now, like, I, again, like, so, you know, like, one of our pastimes would be playing video games and then philosophizing and talking about stuff. And, you know, like I'd mentioned before, you know, we created, a self-philosophy called Mophism. And so, like, in a sense, it's like, I know now that even in the creation of that was still built upon like a facade. Like, I know that it was pure intention, pure at heart. It was childlike in nature. It fits more on like of a natural love path. But in the end, it's still just a tool. And now it has an opportunity to be like a tool, really kind of guiding in a parallel of what divine love and connecting people possibly like to divine love and to divine truth, rather than just like creating another like human-made, man-made structure and system that then kind of like separates people and, you know, isolates them, and then, you know, that type of stuff. Because that was the one thing that we never wanted to create when we were kids, was that sort of like aspect and philosophical approach. Like, we really wanted to unify people and bring people together. Again, mind you, this is coming from children, like, you know, so the fact that we've been able to even maintain ourselves within it is still like kind of like, it's kind of beautiful in itself, because, you know, like, against time, against like all odds, like, we've stayed connected, we've stayed true to it in a sense and what it's done for us. But from like now what I'm understanding within myself, it's not that it was completely facade based, but I can see now the addiction of wanting to relate to it on every level. And then like I can see that there was also addiction then added to the video game aspect of then like the escapism. And I don't mean like the addiction of like, oh, I have to play, but mean like the reasons behind it. Like, you would have some pain at school with like certain kids, and then because you couldn't take it out and you couldn't let it out and you didn't have any ability to kind of like rage or let out the energy or pent up angst, oh, okay, you escaped in a video game. Like it's those sort of things. Like, I can remember one instance where I really like did like, I think, connect, which was like really, really good, to like God in a way. And that was at one point in time in my life, and that was when my grandfather passed. Because like I raged out hard, and I can look back now and realize that like in that moment, like, you know, I let out that pain and that fear and that anger, and afterwards, you know, like I connected with God. Like, it was now looking back on it, it was like that was the process. That was the process that everybody should have done, and I can't deny that I felt fucking great afterwards. Like, I felt, because I mean I felt loved. I felt okay. I felt calm. I felt joy. I felt so many different things. Like, and it was all in one moment, and it was then triggered by something that was so painful, something that was so traumatic. And I didn't have a really close relationship with my father's father. Like, I didn't have, like, looking back on it, I mean, like, he used to do a thing whenever I was young and we were in his kitchen, it would be like bear hugs. He would act like a big old grizzly bear and then come up and then just like kind of grr and then like hug me and shake me around a little bit, and that was about it. Like, you know, and I, before I would leave, I would always tell him and my grandmother, you know, I loved them, and I would, you know, kiss them both and hug them both, and I knew they were receptive to it. But you could still, like, now looking back on it, I can see where their barriers were, and that was one thing that like I was able to break down this last holiday season, this last, you know, 2019 Christmas thing, of something of my grandfather, which was quite powerful. You know, I didn't know that my great grandfather was also a veteran, and also was, um, in war. And my grandfather on my father's side, he was a high-ranking colonel. He was a lieutenant colonel in Army Air Corps that then turned into Air Force. His name was Edward F. Jones. And there's a book out called "Deny Them the Night Sky" that talks about his squadron. It was P-61 Black Widows, the 548th Division Night Fighter Squadron. The whole book is about that squadron. And what's funny is that, like, I hear this story from my dad ever so briefly during the holidays about how Grandpa's father was, like, very harsh with him and, like, very, in a sense, like, abusive and very, like, just expectations and just very rough and hard. And that I remember growing up that my great-grandmother, I used to call her Mama Myrtle, like, I noticed and I sensed that, like, when I was told, oh, that's Grandpa's mom, I always, at every family event, every family gathering we had, because she was born in 1900 and she died in 1992, I noticed that they never spoke. Like, there was never an acknowledgement, there was never, like, an interaction, there was never really a hug. I mean, like, he would lead her into rooms, sit her down, like, those types of things, but they would never converse. Like, and I always found that, like, quite odd. And then now with what my dad had told me, which was that, like, apparently, like, my grandfather held, like, quite a bit of resentment and pain towards my great-grandmother because he felt she needed to protect him more. That was my father's feeling on it, and it resonated. It spoke through. It was like, oh shoot, like, that makes a ton of sense. And I started to break down and cry and, like, really take in, like, what he was saying. And I wasn't crying, like, to get acknowledgement from my family or anything. I was crying for my grandfather. Like, I was crying because I understood that, like, he had this pain built up into him and he had this rage built up into him that he had towards his father and his mother, and that he went into the military because he wanted to get his father's love, and his father never showed him any love whatsoever. And then his father only showed him all this rage, and then he would try to seek out love from his mother, but then his mother wouldn't protect him from his father. So he was like, okay, I'm going to go into the military and I'm going to achieve this career in the military. I'm going to achieve high ranks. He would send back all these letters back to his parents saying, hey, look at who I am, look at what I'm doing, look at how good I am now. And then he eventually outranks his father, and he still doesn't get any love from him. Like, I mean, like, that, like, shined through to me, like, really, really true. And because of that, like, I was able to, like, seriously connect with that. And knowing that, like, made me realize that, like, we all have this pain that's built inside of us. We all have something, and, like, I never would have came to that understanding if I had never heard that story from my father. And in a way, I feel like because I was able to connect with it, because I was able to, like, really, like, saturate on it, really feel with it, like, I was able to possibly help him. I know I was able to help him heal from wherever he's at right now, like, and wherever, my great grandfather's at and wherever my great grandmother's at, like I know that somewhere they were able to, like, heal and get a little bit closer. For those of you that are having a hard time, like understanding this as well, and you need a little bit of science affirmation, like, start, like, researching Google, and search, like, online for, like, genetic expression and genetic resonance of, like not past lives, but sorry, I'm trying to find the word, of generational sequences. Like look for, they're starting to show correlation of what they seem to say is that, like, you are genetically passed. Things are not only are traits passed down genetically, but emotions, traumas, like, those things are passed down as well. They're starting to find genetic expression of those things, within offspring of family descendants. So like if you're having a hard time kind of grasping this ethereal stuff and you don't resonate on it enough, and you need to have that proof and that science, and you can't connect direct to source, you can't connect direct to God, you can't like accept these things, and you need that scientific method, the information's out there. You just have to find it, and you just have to research it and do your deep dive and your deep searching. Although I would say like kind of put that off to the side and just like take what I'm saying and like really kind of resonate and feel on it. And if you resonate and feel on it, you'll know that what I'm saying is true. Like you'll be able to ping moments in your own life with your own family members. You don't need my family members to affirm it. Just go back into your own family history and you'll be able to know. Like go back to situations when you were a kid and look around and replay those memories, because that's when you were in your purest form, and that's when you were able to really connect with what was going on. As much as people don't want to say it, you had more connection to God, the universe, and everything around you than anybody else did in your family. So now you need to realize too, when you look at your children, when you look at your nieces and nephews, when you look at people who are just popping out in life, be receptive to what they're saying, be receptive to their energy, be receptive to who they are. Like understand that like they are so aware, they're freaking sponges, they're giant antenna that are sending out like exactly what we're supposed to be doing, yet nobody's picking up on it. Nobody. So my suggestion is start doing the work, start doing the deep dives, pick up on it. And one of those ways of breaking down is breath work. So I say if you're in a place that actually does it, sign up for a class. Like I said, I'm going to attach the link to my soul sister Sarah, and she always posts about that stuff and shows it. And then wherever you are in your area, I suggest you take one of those classes and tap into those inner emotions and those inner feelings and really break that stuff down. So peace, love, and happiness to you all, and I hope you guys have a great day and a great weekend.